Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jack, this is Jthbooks, and it is time for the October reading wrap-up. Friends, gather around. I have a secret to tell you. Guess who got his reading mojo back? It's me. I don't want to keep it a secret anymore. It is me. October, thank you, because you made me fall in love with reading again. You know, we had a not great September, book-wise, but we are back. And we are back with a bang. Ah, the joy of books. So, it definitely helped that I did the shortlist for the Polari Prize in October. And that they were brilliant. I just read good books. I loved it. What? I just loved reading. I love reading. Any spare moment I had, I was reading. In the morning, reading. In the bar, before bed. Anytime. It was pure heaven and bliss, and I loved it. So let's talk about the book, shall we? So I read 12 books. You're shocked too, aren't you? You're shocked too. I read 12 books. I didn't think that was possible anymore. I didn't even listen to any on audio. It was all physical. Let's get physical. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Okay, back to the books. Listen, yeah, a few of them are short, okay? But it still counts. Okay? I won't hear anything else. You're not going to take it away from me, friends, okay? But let's crack on, because 12 books we've got to go through. That we could be here for an eternity. So, first up, we read Bal Gutner by Paul Auster. Now, in this, we follow Bal Gutner, whose wife has just died, and he feels really lost. He feels like he hasn't got long left of his life, and he doesn't really want to spend it without her. But he starts to read her words, and he feels himself sort of come back to life again. Now, I know it sort of sounds a bit like a cheesy, a cheesy book, let's be honest. But it's not. It's written really beautifully. It has such a flow to it that it feels very literary. And it was just a really sort of glorious read. He is a character that will stay with you for a long time. I think it has an ending that sort of makes it feel like it could almost like be a series, but I think the author gets grief across really well. I think he gets love across really well. I think he sort of really digs in at picking yourself back up and getting on with your life, which is incredibly hard to do, and I think it's all done with real class. And I really enjoyed it. This was really kindly sent to me by Faber Books. It comes out on November 7th, so if it sounds interesting, you haven't got long to wait, I'm going to guess. Who knows when this is going to go up, because you know me, lazy to do stuff, but not lazy to read. But yeah, it's a short, sharp, sweet, poignant novel, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have another short book, as it's not cheating. We have Nadja in the Dark by Yelena Moskovich. Now, this is a story about a couple who are sort of just sitting in the dark after they fled the Soviet Union as children, and they are living in Berlin. Is it Berlin? It's Berlin. And while they're sitting there not talking, it's just our narrator looking back over her life and their relationship and how they met. And it was quite unlike anything I've ever read. I don't know if Yelena is a poet, but a lot of this read to me like poetry. I felt like I was sort of reading poetry at times. It sort of even looks like poetry on the page. But there were real moments of despair and darkness in it, but also sort of that joy of finding each other, and I think that was captured really well. It again felt like a very literary book, but yeah, it is another one I really enjoyed. It looks at hope and all its meanings, and how it feels not to have any, and how it feels to cling on to it, and how to find it. It was really interesting, this book, and it was really beautifully written. It did dip in and out for me, I won't lie. It did dip in and out at times. Sometimes I had no idea what was going on. But not plot-wise, just what the author was talking about. But it's a look at immigration and history and love and queerness, and It was really good. Then we started the Polari Prize shortlist. Me. Why do I say we all the time? So there is a whole vlog, so I'm just sort of going to skim through these because otherwise this video will be very long. But if you want to check out that vlog, it is linked down below. I'd really love it if you did, because even though it's like nothing special, I worked quite hard on it and I loved reading the books and I loved the prize. So first up from that prize was The New Life by Tom Crew. This is about two men who are trying to figure out who they are, and they come together to write a book on sexuality and its naturalness, and how when Oscar Wilde is arrested, it derails their plans. That's a very base, but like I said, it's all in the vlog down below. And this was a 5-star prediction. I've been putting it off because people would tell me I didn't like it, but I loved it. It was 5 stars for me. I think it's a brilliant look at queerness in history. I think it's I loved it. I loved the way it was written. I loved the two main characters. I just loved every part of it. I think it's an important piece of queer historical fiction because it really captures sort of the community as a whole back then, when obviously it's normally very singular, I always find. I just loved it. But like I said, if you want my full thoughts, check the vlog down below. Then I read None of the Above by Travis Alabanza. This is a non-fiction for the prize, and my goodness, it was brilliant. It's just a look at life beyond the binary. It's looked at the intersection of race and sexuality and gender fluidity, and it sort of feels like a non-fiction I've never read before. It felt oddly personal, yet not at all. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just felt like as a collective whole, but still you really got to know Travis and their story, and it makes some brilliant points. It made me think about things I hadn't thought before, and I think it could win. But I also think The New Life could win. I enjoyed them all, so they all could win. That didn't help, but I loved this one. I really did. Then I read Love from the Pink Palace, Memoirs of Love, Loss, and Cabaret Through the AIDS Crisis by Jill Nalder. If you have seen the show, It's a Sin. This is it in book form. This book really inspired It's a Sin. And, well, not really, it did. I don't know why I said it like that. It absolutely did. And it was another one that was absolutely brilliant. It was really emotional. It showed Jill in such a fantastic light as she stuck by her friends through the scrutiny they received around the AIDS times and the viciousness, and how loss and heartbreak just sort of was the defining factor of those times, and fear. But it also showed what an ally Jill was, and I just wanted to give Jill a hug. I think she seemed like the most really lovely, genuine person. And this one made me cry. They all made me cry, actually. And there's pictures in this that I still haven't looked at because I would cry. But just such another solid one for the prize. Then I read a book of poetry for the Polari Prize. Again, how many times do I want to say that? And this was Rising of the Black Sheep by Livia Kojo Alor. Now, this is poetry about what it means to be a clear black woman, and talking about loss and grief and activism and equality. And what I really, obviously, sometimes poetry is a bit hit and miss because it can feel very personal. It can feel very abstract. But what I said in the vlog, and I'll say it here again now, you really got to know the author through the poems. You got to know her story, and I really, really liked that. I could see this winning too. Well, yeah, I could see it winning, but like I said, any of them could win. But another solid one for the month. Like, there wasn't a bad book in this prize. Then I read The Whale Tattoo by John Ransom. Now, this is about Joe, who, after sort of running away from his home 2 years ago, he comes back, and he believes wherever he goes, death follows him. That was a very sort of short, there's a much more complex story to it. But I think this is a very dark, very gritty novel. It is very unlike anything I've sort of read before, fiction-wise. It really captures that small town vibe. It captures that sort of first queer love, but the author took it to places I didn't expect it to go. It wasn't a total success for me, but it's certainly not a bad book. I think this is sort of gritty enough and vulnerable enough to win the prize too. I know I've said that literally about every book. That's ridiculous. But it's just, I mean, the fact that it's a debut as well. They all are. I read the debut prize. I did forget to say that. But there's just something about this one that I think was really different to any of the others, and it felt assured. I'm sorry if you can hear that plane going over, like, apparently it likes to interrupt me. Yeah, it was just really raw, really uncompromising, and it was bold. It took a chance that in some ways paid off, some ways it didn't, but mainly it did pay off, and it was good. It did make me cry too. So next up, I read Boy Parts. Now, this has been up for the vote before, and it did not get picked, but I was going to see the play, so I wanted to read it before I went to see the play. And I'm a book boy. I have to read it before I see it, much like with the film. And the play is a one-woman show, by the way. I don't know if you know that, but it was. I did not know that. But in this, we follow Irina, who takes photographs of sort of ordinary looking men that she scouts on the streets, and when her photos get chosen for an art expedition, she has to sort of pick the ones that are best for her. And I think this book does some things really, really well. It looks at how women are treated in society and what it means when women don't sort of really adhere to sort of the societal pressures and things like that. It's an in-depth look at Irina's mental health, and just it's really tricky to explain, especially without giving away the plot, because I don't want to give away the plot to you. But the character is unlikable, so it's hard to sort of feel any attachment to her. And just FYI, she is meant to be unlikable. She even says in the book, I am unlikable. It's apparent, but I think, I know this is a book that a lot of people love. A lot of people will think it's, fresh and just sort of this powerful book. And I think it's a book that some people would really, really hate. It really plays with sexuality, and it plays with sort of the taboo-ness of it. It very nearly goes there. In some ways it really does. In some ways you think, is this really going to go there? It's dark, it's visceral, it's just, it says it's funny, but I weren't laughing. But I think it's a book you'll either really love or really hate, and I think it's really interesting to see how people react to this one. And then I finished the prize, which was the last book, was A Visible Man by Edward Enninful. This is his story and how he became sort of very influential in the fashion world, and how he sort of started work at Vogue. And again, I really enjoyed this one. Not a fashion boy, but it feels very much sort of the fashion we all know, like Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss. And he has a really interesting story and a really great outlook on life. And like I said, it's all in the vlog. I'm going to stop talking about these now, but I really did enjoy this one. And I really like the pictures in it. I could look at these pictures. They didn't make me cry. Then I read the book that you all voted for, which was Yes, Daddy by Jonathan Parks Ramage. Now, this is about Jonah, who meets an older man who is a playwright, which is what he wants to be. And they sort of have a brief love affair, and then they all go to the Hamptons. Richard then breaks up with Jonah, says he owes him money, and he has to sort of work at the Hamptons for the summer in his house. But this book is wild. Trigger warnings for SA and everything like that. I think the author's intention is to make it, you look at sort of this rich, successful, powerful men and what they can get away with, and what we are willing to do to achieve our ambitions. I thought that was all really good. There is a vlog for it. I'll link it down below, of course. I won't go into too much detail. But for me, it definitely falls off towards the end. I think it went further than I thought it was going to, but I think sort of the first 3/4 were really explained well, and I think it falls off at the end. I think the resolution at the end wasn't quite set up enough for it to work. But it's a book that will make you think. It's a book that will make you angry. It's a book that will, again, a bit like Boy Parks, you'll either love it or you'll hate it. But the author sets out what he intends to do. None of it is sort of well, it is shocking, but none of it sort of makes you question the author. Does that make sense? It's just a brutal read. It really was. I really wasn't quite expected to be this brutal, but it's a book you won't forget anyway, let's put it that way. Then I read The Manor House Governess by C.A. Castle. Now this is about Bron, who leaves his all-boys boarding school and goes to work as a governess in sort of this manor house. Well, there you go. That's why it's called that, friends. And that's what I'm going to say. I don't want to ruin the plot. But my goodness, I absolutely loved this book. It was so brilliant. It sort of feels like an homage to the classics. I mean, the main character was Bronte Ellis. But it's an homage to the classics with this sort of modern elements. Like, that sort of shocked me when they were mentioned, sort of like the internet was mentioned, or you know, your phone. And I was like, oh no, I'm not reading a book set in, you know, whenever. I don't know when the classics were written. I can't think of one right now. But, embarrassing. But I think it has a great romance in it. I think the author really manages to get some brilliant gender discussions in this book without them ever feeling out of place, because the character is very much gender fluid, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was really, really gripping. I thought it was very atmospheric. Oh, I absolutely loved it. I really, really loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It sort of had this sort of swoon-worthy romance in it. It had sort of really complicated characters. It had a really sort of intriguing plot. It had sort of a twist that I didn't see coming. I feel like some people would see it coming, but not me. And I just loved everything about it. I really did love everything about it. It was basically a 5-star read for me. I adored it. And then lastly, the Pierre de Resistance. We had The Woman and Me by Britney Spears. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's Britney's story. I will say it's not very detailed, but somehow you get enough detail. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it's just a fact. It's the truth. I think she's really open. I think she's really honest. I think she looks at herself sort of critically. I think she's just a nice girl. Well, woman. She's just a nice woman that has just been taken advantage of and looked over her whole life. She was sort of this star, but she didn't really matter to anyone. She speaks her truth, and I loved it. I really did love it. There's a part 2 coming. I saw that on the internet, that she's got enough for another one, and it's coming next year. And I'll be first in line. I will be absolutely first in line. I just think it sort of feels really authentic to her. And look, it's not, you know, it's not a masterpiece. You're not going to be blown away by the writing, but she just wants to tell her story, and I think she does just that. And I'm all ears, Britney. And also, I've just been listening to nothing but Britney Spears again. What's my favourite Britney song, you ask? Did you ask? No. I think it's Overprotected. Or Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman. But Baby One More Time was the first single I ever brought. So I just love Britney. I just love you. I love you, Britney. So good on you for speaking your power. I'm sure you're watching this. Are you, Britney? So there we have it. 12 books. It was a good reading month. There wasn't a bad one in the bunch. I love reading. I love reading. And these books reminded me of it. So I'm so happy. I'm just so happy about it. But let me know if you've read any of these. If you want to, let me know if you've read the Britney book. Let's talk. Just have a chat to me. You know how much I enjoy that. I know I say it every video and you must be sick of it, but I really enjoy chatting to you. It makes my day. feel free to like and subscribe. All the likes really, really help, and subscribing. I would, just sort of love this to keep growing. So, and hit the notification bell, then I'll just ping up. Just be like this, and I'll be there. That's what I'll be doing when that little bell goes off. I assume. I don't know really what that means. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'm going to speak to you all really, really soon.